If I say something negative, what's that mean? 40 times to 70 times more likely that there's going to be a negative outcome or a negative outcome that I do not like versus me not saying anything at all.
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years. Our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
Who watched the game last night, right? Watched the game? Football game, right? So, national championship last night. Who won? Alabama, right? Why do you think Alabama won? That was Nick Saban's what? 7th national championship, I believe. He passed Bear Bryant for the most successful or most national championships ever won, I think, right? At least through Alabama or even total as a college coach, right? Yeah. Why do you guys think that is? I'm going to teach on fundamentals. What else?
Mindset, training, recruitment, money.
All of that. And that's one thing that, what's that?
Well, Saban said at the end of the game, he said every single person there bought in to what the coaching staff was trying to convey to them.
Yes. And but there's a difference I'm fascinated anytime I watch Nick Saban stuff because he's such a damn good coach, right? In regards to running a business. And one of the things I sent Alex this weekend I was studying that was fascinating was one of their mindset coaches that they hired. And I can't remember his name's Trevor or something, I can't remember, but fascinating what they do, but it has to do with why Alabama's dominating, right? You think that it's just recruiting. Everybody thinks it's recruiting, but it all has to do with culture and it all has to do with how they train the teams. They talk about, look, they lose, 33% of their players every single year because they're going to NFL, graduating, whatever it is. But he talked about the same thing, that college football is a business, bottom line, right? In regards to endorsements, to sponsorships, to donors, and the more you win, the more money you make, but you got to continually win it to get that money coming in, right? And so he hired this, and he talked about this guy, Trevor, talks about how Nick Saban's vision was different in regards to it, right? And so the part of what he did is he talked about how they had to change the players' mindsets, and they tried to do some like high-level, like they were looking at, can we teach them meditation and mindfulness and all that? That was too high, and so they looked at data of how can they really break down and help these players and help them continually win and level up. And so Nick Saban's philosophy on sports psychology wasn't fixing the broken ones. His psychology was, how do I make the absolute best players even better? And it's fascinating. I watched this last weekend, and obviously to watch them win another national championship and dominate just goes to show that in regards to how I do that. And his thing was, how do we make the absolute best players better? And the training part was just positive thinking. Specifically, no negativity in their words. And it's ironic that it's obviously one of our core values and no negativity, but he talked about some studies, which is crazy to look at, and I have the numbers here to look at, but long story short, if you have a negative thought that's verbalized, it's 10 times more powerful once it's spoken. So if I say something out loud, it's 10 times more powerful. It's contagious. It anchors itself in your subconscious. Right? We talked about the same thing is true for an objection, right? We mentioned once a person says an objection, it's much harder to overcome. And so we all have this way of thinking and saying things, but what most people tend to do is they verbalize that, right? And I want you to think about anytime I say anything is 10 times more powerful to myself. So that comes in the way of affirmations, right? And one of the questions that Saban and the coaching staff had was, how do we rewire their brain? Do we do affirmations? Do we try to rewire the way they think? And that was kind of difficult, and he said they looked at the next set of data, who's from a Georgetown professor. She did a study where anything negative, right, has a multiple of 4 times to 7 times more powerful in that regard. These are 2 separate studies. Anything that's verbalized is 10 times more powerful in regards to it becoming true or being true. That can be positive or negative. On the flip side, a separate study showed that anything negative, right, I write negative here, is a multiple of 4 to 7 times, which is crazy. And so if you look at that, that's what they tend to do is they train their entire team to stop saying stupid shit. He said they made a bet together, and they did it after the game with Georgia. They said if we can make a bet for our entire team not to say anything stupid, not to say stupid shit at all. Can we get our entire team to do that? And they were able to do that and build that foundation because you look at the actual data. I got her name, Christine Porath from Georgetown University, right? This negative multiple 4 to 7 times more powerful. Now, here's the crazy part. If I say, this is just negative in general, if I have a thought, right, that's verbalized, it's 10 times more powerful. You guys with me on this? Mm-hmm. Now, if I say a negative thought, that's a multiple of 10, which means what? If I say something that's verbalized as 10 times more powerful, right? That's likely to become true. Now, a negative has a multiple of 4 to 7 times. If I say something negative, what's that mean? 40 times to 70 times more likely that there's going to be a negative outcome or a negative outcome that I do not like versus me not saying anything at all. Which is crazy. And he talks about this is true in the team where I'm not having a good week, practice was tough, fight between the players, right? Any negativity, gossip. And the same thing in our business, which is what? I can't get anybody on the phones. Can't get anybody on the phones. No one's answering. I can't book any appointments. I had a tough week, right? All this is crazy to look at. And I wrote down the exact quote from it. So verbalizing something negative out loud is a multiple of 47 times more likely that it will happen, a cause or result that will not be good for me than if I just did not say anything at all. Which is wild. Right? And so they break the data down through multiple studies, like I said, and the professor did both Georgetown and Harvard, so pretty well qualified in that regard. I'll look up and see if I can find the actual report. And so at Alabama, they made a commitment. They said, what if we just stop the team from saying stupid shit out loud and verbalizing negativity? Wow, right? And then next thing you know, you talk about basic foundations. The same team just won the 7th national championship with this specific coach and that outcome. Right? And dominated. And obviously, I don't think how many games they lost in the past 5 years, like 4 or 5 at all. That's the foundation of the winner's mindset. And so it's ironic that it aligns with our core values because that's what kills success. And so I want you to look back, and if you take anything from today, is be aware of like, what am I verbalizing? And we talk about, we all have up thoughts. It doesn't mean you can't think negative things, but the difference is once that's verbalized, it's 10 times more powerful. Now you add the multiple of 4 to 7 times of being negative. Guess what? Now I'm 40, 70 times more likely that something that I don't like is going to be the outcome. And so the more I talk about people not answering the phone, guess what happens to those people? They don't answer. The people that bitch about having the objection about the COVID, guess what happens to those people? They get more of them. It's crazy. And I've watched it. I've talked to Alex about this. So you notice the same people that have these same problems are the ones that have the same problems over and over?
No-show appointments, stuff like that.
Consistently. Now, it doesn't mean we can't talk about the reality on a Thursday meeting when in its right arena, because that's how you get better. But on the flip side, how many times am I saying something in my life? Same thing with marriages, same thing with relationships, right? My wife and I always fight. Well, guess what? I'm 40, 70 times more likely that that's going to continue on if I don't make a correction there, which is powerful to look at, right? And so there's 2 things they focus on. Number 1, don't say stupid shit. Anything. And that's literally what they said. That was the exact words they used, which is powerful to look at. And number 2, be mindful of our behavior, specifically what we consume. And he shared another amazing statistic I thought was crazy to look at. But he said, if I watch 3 minutes of news, I'm 27% more likely to tell somebody I had a shitty day. If I watch 3 minutes of news, 27% more likely to tell somebody I had a shitty day. Which is crazy, right? And so why is that? Because the mind is so powerful, right? Literally, so much it goes into our thoughts, our being, the positivity, your self-image. All this stuff is just accumulation of what your subconscious is recording. And so if we look at this, just be aware of in my relationship, at home, at work, here, why am I saying these things, right? And that's why you got to fight for this just to start it. And he talks about we don't lie to ourselves. We don't say positive thinking. That's one of the things they talk about is that, he mentioned is that the guy that talks about it, who's obviously the sports psychologist, said that he grew up not believing in positive thinking, right? Just didn't think that was kind of a bunch of bullshit. And the reality is it's hard for people to when you tell people to think positive in negative situations, what happens usually? They think it's bullshit, right? It's hard to tell somebody to be positive when they're going through a divorce, right? It's real hard to tell somebody to be positive to have some of their family that gets sick. It's real hard to tell somebody positive when you can't pay your bills and you're behind on your mortgage or whatever it is. And the reality was here, and this is the great quote he talked about. He said, I don't know if positive thinking works, but I sure know that negative thinking works all the time. And I know that negative thinking works all the time. Meaning that if I'm negative and I say negative things, what's that do to my production? Goes down instantly, right? So that's the key part there is if I can just stop that negative. So the alternative, right, to negative is neutral, right? If I can switch to neutral and not say negative stuff, that's the ground where I can look at the facts. And at that point, I can then add a positive once I can dig out that hole. And so, in other words, obviously, if you're down a few scores, right, something happens, you're not going to focus on the negative. You can't just say, think positive. I want to look at the neutral, the reality. Hey, look, we can come back and win this. I get back in that, then obviously that's when the positivity comes in. And so if you take anything from today is watch the words that you say and make commitment of looking at the data. And he said all they did was teach the team the data over and over and over, and it finally stopped once they really understood the data. And it took the team policing themselves, right, from a culture, which we talk about here, because no one really talks negative to me, but in the back room, wherever else, they're talking about some negative bullshit. And here's the thing, somebody dumps that on you, you don't want that 40 to 70 times more likely in your life as well, because that creates doubt. Period. Every single time. Does that make sense? No matter who you are. Same thing about the leads, people not answering. It's the same thing if I go up and say, look, man, I think that your wife may be cheating on you. What's that going to happen to you? You're going to question everything. Right? Or your husband's cheating on you. You're going to question everything. It may not be true or not. The same thing is true if you talk about leads. And people not answering. And people not showing. Because it's going to create doubt in your mind. And so just watch those words that you're saying here. And just gave some examples we talked about, which is powerful. Anybody here heard about Bill Buckner? Anybody know who Billy Buckner is? He played for the Boston Red Sox. They were playing the Mets, right? So the craziest part, if you look at Billy Buckner, amazing. He was an 8-time Gold Glove winner. Right? 1996, he let the ground ball go through his legs. Mets won the World Series. You know the craziest part about that? I got chills. 12 days earlier, he had an interview. Anybody see the interview? It was on an ESPN sports thing. They asked him, what do you think the outcome could be of the World Series? He said, best case scenario, we win the World Series. Worst case scenario, I let a ground ball go through my legs and we lose the World Series. No shit. Oh my God. Crazy, right? And so what it did is it put that energy out there in the subconscious. And here, we don't know if it's a higher being or if it's something just that your subconscious knows and sees that. Guess what? That ball came to him at the very end. What do you think? Oh, this is the worst case scenario. He's already played in his mind. Guess what happened to the ball? Right between his legs. And so that's a powerful example. There's example after example after example because there's a subconscious plan. Another one is Pete Maravich they talk about, which is very powerful. Anybody heard of Pete Maravich? Pistol Pete, right? What was he? He's one of the best shooters, players. There was a great movie I watched with my dad, right, when I was a kid. But he talked about, this is crazy, he was interviewed at 26 years old and he said he didn't want to play 10 years of pro basketball in the NBA and die at 40 at a heart attack. Guess what happened to Pistol Pete? He played 10 years in the NBA and died at 40 of a heart attack in California. So you want to talk about that, 14 years later of that exact thing you said in an interview happened to that exact same date. And so you want to talk about the powerful words. And I learned this in that internet marketing group I was in a long time ago called Quickstar. And I was telling y'all the story is they had this thing, no negativity. That's where I got that from. They said, we don't speak negative here. And I didn't realize how much habits I had of saying negative things until they stopped me. They stopped me in my tracks and said, hey, we don't do that here. We don't do that here. And about the 4th or 5th time, I was like, damn, I get this. And guess what? I stopped myself from saying it. But if you look at the data of why do people win national championships like Alabama, it starts a simple shit like this. And the mindset, because that's how you win consistently. It's one thing to win 1 game or 2 games or 3 games, but it's another thing to win the highest games at the highest level consistently for 7 years, right? Or 7 times out of 10 years, whatever the number is. And so it's powerful to think about as well in that aspect, which is crazy. And there's another one I want to share with you guys too. That was this story. It's powerful. This guy was hired to fix a refrigerated boxcar. I think it was in the Success magazine, 1973. I looked it up. I have it on my computer. I'll share it with you guys. But he was hired to fix a refrigerated boxcar, right? He gets in to the boxcar, and guess what happens? He gets locked in. He gets trapped. And so he's there to fix it, and they said he found a pen. One of the things he started doing is writing on the wall of the boxcar what was happening. He says, I'm starting to feel colder. Right? Then it was a while later, and they said the one thing we do as humans, we return a report. Right? Anytime that we have something happen, we return a report. Had a bad quarter, had a bad day today. Right? Talk to your spouse, had a bad day today. We return a report what's going on. He said he kept writing where I'm feeling even colder. He wrote down again, I can't feel my legs. And then he wrote later on that he was starting to fall asleep, and it was the last thing that he could remember. And guess what happened? A few hours later, they found him. He was dead in the boxcar. The problem was, guess what happened? The refrigeration unit was broken. It was only 56 degrees in the boxcar. But in his mind, he was freezing to death because of his thoughts and the way that he was coming across in that aspect, which is powerful to think about. And I was Googling this morning to make sure that it was true, and it was. And I think it's Joel Osteen's book too as well, which is powerful. But the reality is, right, we got to make sure we're able to look at that and wonder how much of my behavior is saying negative words. Where am I saying these things that are hurting me? And here's an example, which is powerful. And one thing that we talk about is I can't control what happens or what goes on, but the one thing I'm in control of is what Blake Sloan says. I'm in control of what I say and how I say it consistently. There are times that things are going to happen and we got to break our habit, right? Be aware of how many times am I verbalizing these negative things. And here's the thing, I want to be verbalizing positive over and over and over, right? I did affirmations for years. And I changed my affirmation sheet twice because that became true, which is crazy. Now I need to probably go back to doing that. But the reality is anything negative is going to have 4 to 7 times multiplier, 40 to 70 times more likely that's going to continue in your life. And if you learn something from today, is like, where in my life am I saying these negative things that are just bringing more and more and more and more? And some of you guys have seen that as well, which is powerful. And one more thing I want to share, a story of a guy named Franklin Pierce. You guys heard about Franklin Pierce at all? Super successful entrepreneur, a magazine entrepreneur, I think, but it's crazy where he shared a story with this guy's dad, which I thought was very powerful. But he's one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. And what happened was in high school, his junior year, he was failing out. Wasn't shown to class, didn't like being in school, was taking the wrong crowd, but he made his mom a promise that he would at least take the SAT, which is crazy, right? Took the SAT, promised her he would, didn't study for it, didn't do anything. Went and did the SAT, took the test, and the score came out. He got a 1480 out of 1600 on the SAT, which is really damn good, right? First thing his mom asked him was what? Did you cheat, right? And he said, no, Mom, I swear I didn't cheat. I actually tried to cheat, but I couldn't cheat because the way the scantrons work, I couldn't realize and understand the bubbles and what people were doing, so I just took the test. And so he got a 1480, which is crazy, right? Shocked his mother in that regard, and he told her, I swear to God I couldn't cheat in that aspect. And the best thing was, what do you think happened to him? Going into his senior year, what do you think happened? He started realizing he was smart. So he started going to class. The teacher started seeing him going to class. And they said, man, now Franklin is starting to put himself and apply himself. We should probably help him too. And obviously they helped him be able to do better in school, get good grades. And guess what? He graduated, went on to a local community college, then went to a Ivy League college, started his business, and became super successful entrepreneur, which is crazy, right? Well, guess what happened? 12 years later, after success, he gets a letter in the mail. And the letter in the mail is from Princeton, New Jersey. Anybody knows what that's from? Anybody remember getting those letters? Guess what's in Princeton, New Jersey?
Princeton.
That too, but guess what else? The testing company that managed the SAT, which is wild. So his wife encouraged him to open the letter. He finally opened the letter, and it said in the letter that we're doing an audit and a review, and during the year you took your SAT, you're one of 13 people who were sent the wrong SAT score. Your SAT score is actually like a 700 or 800, which is crazy. And so the reality was, guess what happens? Everybody thinks that his life changed when he had the 1480 on the SAT, but he said his entire life changed when he started acting like the person who got the 1480 on the SAT. And so this is all just an example of mindset and things that happened there. It wasn't that he thought he did good on a standardized test or that he just needed that standardized test to believe himself. He just had to apply himself and be that person who's putting in the work and it's acting like it. Does that make sense to you guys?
It's like a fake it till you make it kind of thing. Kind of.
Yeah, you just got to show them dirty work. You did that same thing, not fake it, but guess what you did? You showed up consistently, right?
I mean, like the first 2 years I worked here, somebody would ask me how long I've been working doing real estate. 2 years, doing 2 years.
Right. But no, I'm talking about that. I'm talking about you acted like someone who sells a lot of houses, right?
I wanted to be.
From an hour standpoint. Now, if you share with you guys this morning, that's what I thought was pretty cool, is he just bought another house, right? 6 doors from the ocean in the Golden Mile, right? 2 years in real estate, which is pretty damn cool. By the way, he's got a rental condo and another house that's going to be rented out. So that'll be 3 properties in 2 years, building wealth because doing the work and sticking on top of it, right? And so that's what it comes down to. You give him a hand for that, which I think is super cool, right? So that just goes back to what? Act as if. right? How they show up, how they do it. But you got to believe in yourself enough like the dude did that got to 1480. The problem is in this business, you won't get to 1480. You already got the tools, everything you need, the resources, the leads. You just got to show up and start acting like the person that sells 50 to 60 homes a year. And it starts out like this right here. Be aware of my thoughts, right? The thoughts here, anything verbalized is 10 times more powerful. On the flip side, anything negative is 4 to 7 times more powerful. You add that compound, right? The 10 times 4 is 40 to 70 times more likely it's going to be an outcome that you don't want. And so the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Why would you continue talking that way? Why would you allow those around you to talk that way? And so you have a job as a leader in your family, a leader here, to make sure that, one, you don't do that. Number two, you stop that. I think that's super powerful for everybody to think of and just super simple, but make that commitment today.